Well, it's exactly 7 o'clock, and this is the 3rd of December, and this is the uh, Investor Business Conference. The purpose of the Investor Business Conference is for you to invite people that you would like to expose to our financial world. As you know, that we are a private investor club and that we specialize in private equity. And what we do is once a month, we have a meeting where we have a guest speaker that will actually just blow your socks off. And apart from that, we then have also contributions from one of our business partners in the actual company to speak on salient points and important issues as we go into the evening. However, it is my duty tonight and my joy and pleasure to introduce our first guest speaker to you. And the person that we'll be talking about is a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, a business partner of mine. We've been knowing each other for years, and we're speaking about Gaukes Mostert. Gaukes Mostert's got a very blend of experience of a lot of things that he's done, and he's got a 3-year national diploma at the Technikon in 1984. He obtained his number of this business diplomas in business management, marketing, instrumental studies. In fact, when it comes to finance, the man is well versed. It's more about his practical experience in terms of what he's done in his life, because not only was he national sales manager for 5 years for Glaudina Holdings, but he also ran his own cash converters. So, man, he learned all about people in need of money, learned about wheeling and dealing, but also during that time found himself going to a place where he got himself immersed in the Forex market in terms of trading and successfully traded for years. And because of that time we was trading, saw so many people in need and people in help, and really started getting into the nitty-gritty of how can finances make a difference in the lives of other people. He really believes in the spirit of money, and it's all about him as a wealth equation through risk management. Risk mitigation is very important for him, and what he'd like to do is to literally show people the way and monitor the success on the way. His business approach is aligned with MyWealth in particular, where it's all about honesty and integrity and offering a solution for the need with a structured plan in place. In fact, that is the thing, the structured plan in place. You'll find this man step by step would like to do things specifically in a specific way. But I think one of the things that is very unassuming is that we have a #1 Amazon bestseller author on the line today. His book, The Ordinary Millionaire, literally has helped me understand certain equations about business and going to the next level. And I'm very proud to really introduce you tonight, my friend, my colleague, and also business partner, and that is Gaukes Mostert. So Gaukes, over to you. Introduce yourself, and when you're ready, please would you kindly also put up your PowerPoint, whatever you want to do, but the floor is yours. Welcome, Gaukes.
Thank you, Anthony. Doc Ant and I we come a long way. I used to knock on his door many times when he was still in helping me in many emotional issues I had when I was much younger, and that was many years ago. So, Anthony, thank you very much. Before everyone starts pressing the exit button, because it's a financial advisor talking, please rest assured we're not going to talk about anything like that. I really need to show you guys a few hidden gems, but also a few hidden points within the industry that has caused so many people not to be able to retire. And that is the space I'd like to be in tonight. On the one hand, the other would be a will, how important it is to have a will. It's just scary to find out that such a small percentage of people, it's under 10%, actually have wills. And those that do have wills don't actually know where it is, haven't looked at it for a while, not sure what it's about. And I personally believe it is the job of the financial advisor to make sure that it is in place and that it's sorted, but it doesn't happen. So I'm going to try and get to the point tonight where I'd like you to call your advisor to book and call him in and say, listen, these are the points that I feel we should be discussing. Why haven't you discussed it with me? I'm also going to be sharing with you a number of items that I use forms that I use. It's copywritten, unfortunately, and as you can imagine, my photo is at the bottom, but you are welcome to use it. All you need to do is send me an email or through Anthony, and I quite happily will distribute it to you at no cost. For those of you that want to download the book, and also at no cost, it's all about giving back to the industry that has given me a lot over the years. That's from being up there, being down there, and recovering and able to retire where I am today. All about multiple income streams. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to share my screen with you. And I'm going to start off with a graph. And this little graph is part of my pictures by doing it by picture, where I'd like to show you. Let me just get this into full view. There we go. Okay, so the word out there is that if you start saving for retirement at the age of 25, you take your gross salary, take 15% of that, you should be able to retire at 70% of your salary when you reach 65. Now, this graph that I'm showing you here actually proves it's true. But there are a few factors that are not being told, that are not being taken into consideration over time. And then I don't know about you, but I haven't heard of too many people that can actually retire, even people that diligently put money away over the years. And this, I hope, would open up a few minds and make you think outside the box and call your advisor and ask him about these things. Now, let's have a look at Joseph. Now, Joseph's 25 years old. We assume he's going to live to 80, which I think it's not the case, but we are saying this is what it is, because this is what most of the people would tell you. And we're saying that 70% of 30 is around about 21,000, so that's in place. And 15% of his 30,000 is 4.5 grand. So all is in place, and Joe can retire at 65, and he will have in equivalent to today's value, he will have 33 million rand to spend as he wishes. Can you imagine what inflation does? It's actually worth 3.2 million in today's value. I just want to quickly share with you the assumptions so that we don't jump around saying that, but this is impossible. It's possible. I've taken all the growth funds at an 8% over a period, in this case, a period of 40 odd years. I've taken inflation at 6% purely because before COVID, it was around about that 6%. So the interest rates have gone down, but it's fine. It will go back again. So I'm just using the same formula. Otherwise, it looks a lot better. And I want it to look better if it's going to be the same. Okay, so now here's the perfect story. Now here comes the problem. And okay, let's do a few scenarios. Now Joe works for himself, and he's got his 30,000 gross salary, and he's putting his 4.5 away, and everything's hunky dory. But his medical aid, there's no medical inflation taken into consideration. So medical inflation, people, it's 4% higher than normal inflation. So whichever way the inflation goes, you'll find out that the medical companies at this stage, their increases for next year would be around about 7%. It's still the 4% up. So in this case, we say, okay, it's 4% up, so 6 and 4 gives me 10. So have a look at what happens. We've suddenly lost, for someone that's diligently following the rules, we've suddenly lost 6 years. Now, if that was not taken into account, he would have thought he would be fine. But this is not where it ends. If he decides to actually then add that additional money because he's a good guy and he wants to keep with the rules and he wants to retire with his 70%. So that means he wants to get to the green line. He's currently at the blue line, and the blue line says he's at 74, his money will be finished. Or we can reduce the amount and he will be able to live till 80, but he won't have much money left. Now, here comes the next pitfall. And this pitfall is not viable. It's not sustainable for you to have a 10% increase on your retirement savings if your increase at work is 6. You'll be able to do it for 3 or 4 years. At some stage, it's going to catch up with you. So what do? We say, okay, look, I'm going to add a little bit more. I'll add 8%. Let's do that. So suddenly your 1,500 shortfall now changes to 2,200 rand. Okay. Now, and this is part of the reason why people can't retire, and they said, but I did everything right. The other thing we need to look at, your age. We know that in today's life, everyone's healthier, they live longer, and let's just assume Joe says, you know what, my Oma and my Opa, they got to their 90s or late 80s or 85, and we say, okay, well, let's plan for 85. And look suddenly what happens to the picture as well. And while it's calculating, then you have so many other reasons for not reaching your target because, Sanlam's bad, or Old Mutual is bad, or that bloody broker is bad. Whatever the case may be, if you do the planning properly and structured, you will know exactly where to go. So in this case, can you see what I'm seeing? His 4.5 has to be 7. It's nearly double that he has to put in if he takes into account all of this factors. And that's the scary part. And now I can even go further and I can say a medical aid for planning purposes for retirement. It is always better to plan for a comprehensive medical aid and not just a hospital plan. We know for obvious reasons why that is. Now, if we build that into the equation, now a Discovery Classic comprehensive plan, which is pretty much a good comprehensive plan. There are many plans out there that's similar, but I now know the price of that. That's going to cost you 5,300 rand. This is now per year for an individual. If we put that into the equation and we press the magic button, and one should be planning for a comprehensive plan. Now, it even becomes a bigger story, and it actually gets to the point where it's not sustainable, and then people just walk away from it. So what I'm trying to show you is through this whole exercise that by applying the correct parameters at the right time, which I believe is the absolute responsibility of the financial advisor, not just to tell you that, but to on an annually basis make sure that it's reviewed. And so we see here a young man that's completely willing to do his bit. He can only retire for literally 7 years. Okay, so actually less. So if I look at the other scenario, and many of us actually work for companies, we've got pension funds, and we think, hey, I've got a pension fund, I'm sorted. Now, another 2 pitfalls you must look out for. Normally, your cost to company, in this case, this would be the 30,000. Your cost to company is normally calculated, 80% of cost to company is normally the pensionable salary, or it's called the fund salary. Now, in this case, it is actually 24,000 rand. So if I go to the 24,000 rand, just put the 6 back because it's still your money. Okay, there's your 30, but only 24 is going to be used to calculate your contribution to the pension fund. Then what they also don't tell you is that not the full 7.5% will fall into the pot. The cost can be anything from 1.5% to 2.5% for the life cover and the admin fees and the income protector. So let's assume in this case, it's not that bad, we take 5%. So suddenly, where someone thought they had more money going into the pot, it's not the case. The same, and they think that they've got a pension fund of 15%, it's not the case. Now, if we press the magic button again, because we now know what we've done, we've taken medical aid into consideration, we've taken the contribution increases into consideration, and we've taken the lifespan into consideration. You can see that if this is not seen as important from day one, you will get lost. And here we go. Now look at this. Isn't this, I mean, it's ridiculous. Look at what this shows me. Now we go to the next level. Let's say I only start at age 30. Then the contribution of 7,700, and so it just becomes more and more every year. But the contribution starting now, let's see what it tells us. Okay, nearly there. Ladies and gentlemen, this is serious stuff. So the next time you want to talk about retirement planning, be sure that number one, you've got a plan, it's in writing, and that you've got a structure in place to make it work. Now, it's not all doom and gloom, but this is pretty much the reality of it, because remember, numbers don't lie. So this is the one thing I just wanted to show you. Then I want to also just share with you a few other documents that I do use, for instance, just to show you the planning cycle that one would use. For instance, if we now know we needed to put away 10,000 Rand a month, we say, okay, we're doing that. I'm going to go and be a car guard on Sundays, and I'm going to pack packets of Pick and Pay, whatever the case would be. I'm reaching my target, and I'm now going to contribute until the age 65, at which I can retire. And in the meantime, I'm also building up my assets, which at some stage I need to go to the bank, and there'll be a gap, which I'll need to take life cover out for. And this red line over here would be the gap. That piece over there is lifestyle increased lifestyle costs. That's the 30% we talk about. So in other words, that's school fees, debt, and so on and so on. Now the whole idea would be that when we reach 65, when the lifestyle changes back to the 70%, that we can try and maintain that. Now the only way we can maintain that is if your assets are enough to actually sustain that over time. Okay. And where this red line comes in, it's just managing your risk. And that could be disability, whatever the case may be. But I'm not going to go into too much details about that. The other thing I would want to suggest you can discuss with your advisors, make sure that they know what is expected of them, and keep them to it. Let them know what is your definition for success. What is it for you? Take it seriously. It's maybe a meeting once a year. Spend 2 to 3 hours. Make sure that you've got all of these little ducks in a row. Now, the financial pressure test. This is most probably, and it's called a pressure test purely because it puts pressure, seriously pressure on yourself. Now, whenever I see new clients or my current clients, because I haven't had this system in place forever, so when I see a client and I say to him, listen, once you have achieved all of these as a yes, and your will is in place, everything's right, I will then hand you over what we call a life file, and I'd like to share that with you. And that's part of getting the plan in writing. So what you do is you have a life file. In this file, you'll have everything documented. And obviously there'll be confidential stuff in here, and that confidential stuff should be locked away. I've got an old woman in the Free State, and I gave him his life file, and he just looked at me like this, says, "Luister broer, hierdie is a frack file." He said, "You're not going to use it while I'm alive. It's going to be when I'm dead. So call it a life file, call it a death file, whatever you want to do." But anyway, let's move on to the pressure test. And these are the type of questions I want you to ask yourself tonight. And one of them, the first one is, has a written financial strategy been documented and updated at least annually to adjust for changed circumstances? In other words, a bigger house, new house, more children, children out the house, market trading conditions, and so on. And if you say yes, you must be able to walk to the cupboard and go and fetch the plan. It has to be a written plan, like it's over here. And then, was the appropriate inflation index used when creating and funding the strategy? I refer back to my graph where you have to have had that discussion, and you have had to see what it means and what the effect of it is. Was the appropriate life expectancy used? Well, you can answer that. And have the long-term care expenses been accounted for by the strategy in order to protect the children's retirement from the unfunded health issues? Ladies and gentlemen, this is major. I'm going to share with you another form. It's called the agenda for the family meeting over here, and that has to do with that issue. Now, when you look at what does that mean, I'm going to tell you a story of one of my clients that he had that purple line 100% intact. It was costing him 15,000 Rand a month, and he was sorted. He was a happy chappy, and he was actually at the point where he could spend time on nice stuff and money on nice stuff. Then what happened is his mother got sick, and she's now got leukemia. When it happened, he couldn't believe it because his parents had been very independent. They've always looked after themselves. They've always said to the children, "You will never have to look after us because we've planned our things." Obviously, they didn't take the medical inflation into consideration. Not their fault. But it happened. So what happened is, her medicine is 15,000 Rand a month. So what did he do? He stopped his RA. Even though it's temporary. Can you imagine if she lives for another 5 years, he's lost 5 years. He would have to now add more. And he has got 3 other brothers. Now, if they had had the family meeting, it would have been so easy if they had realized what was happening in their lives and not assuming, and they would have just added each one $500 or something to put her back to where they were supposed to be in their medical aid. Okay, so very important issue to look at. Then, does the strategy contain the correct blend of guarantee, income, paychecks, and lifestyle paychecks? Now, I want you to ask yourself the question, if I asked you, how much money would you like to have per month in today's value if you were 65 today and you are retiring today? The first thing that comes to mind, and it's spot on every single time, my clients would say, well, I don't need much because the children will be out the house. We don't have debt. And, we don't need much. Okay, that's cool. And I agree with it. Those are what we call the paychecks, because you need to pay medical aid. Hopefully you've taken the medical aid inflation into consideration. You have to pay the bills, water and lights, car insurance, blah, 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 blah. But think about it. What about your retirement fun time? What about going out? What about having fun? What about basic things like buying Christmas presents and having the children over for Christmas every second year? What about your car, replacing a car maybe? What about a trip, those trips that you've always wanted to do, work your whole life for? And that is, it's also, and to finish the statement here, or the question is, to deliver financial peace of mind free from market volatility. Now, we all know we live in a very stressful environment. We work hard. We've got to make ends meet. Now, would you want to do that when you're in retirement? No, I don't think so. Then the next question, number 6, lazy assets. Are there any lazy assets being leveraged to accelerate family wealth? Those extra rooms not in the house. Maybe you've got a granny flat on the side, and you've been meaning to do something with it. Another story. I've got a client. He loves fishing. He really does love fishing. He actually has 3 boats, fishing boats. I'm not talking little paddle boats. I'm talking nice boats. And his wife only knew of 2 of them. And obviously there's client confidentiality, so I couldn't tell her. And I then suggested to him, but then why don't you start a business with these boats? And it took him about a year before he actually was able to get it in place, because he suddenly realized he couldn't get insurance, because he had to get someone to captain the boat and so on. But he got it right. And he was making a fairly nice income from that. And of course, his wife now knew there were 3 boats, because I still don't know how he told her, but she was happy that there were 3 boats. So lazy assets is something that can be leveraged. Does the plan contain fully comprehensive disability and income protection? 10 out of 10 times there's a yes, and I believe it's a truthful yes, because you've got life cover. And I'm not going to go into that tonight, because also 8 out of 10 times when I do sit with someone that's been with the same advisor for a few years, many years, they are overinsured in many instances. So that's something you need to do, a financial needs analysis at least every 2 to 3 years, to make sure that you can save money on that type of expense to rather put it into retirement planning. Then are the estate plan distributions arranged with value guidelines? That's to do with your will. If you have a will and the will is proper, well, that's a yes. And has the family meeting been convened? I've just told you about the family meeting as well. And I'm going to share with you a few pointers on that. And then the estate directory has also to do with your will. And then at the bottom here, I've just added for the purpose of tonight to say, have a fully completed life file in safekeeping and have a proper will drafted by experts. Now, that's a topic on its own, because I also often find, especially on the smaller towns, where the lawyer is everyone. And when there's an estate to be wound up, it never happens. It takes 3 to 4 years. And I do believe it's your responsibility, it's your social responsibility to actually to have your estate sorted out within 3 to 4 months, and it can be done. Can only be done if you use experts. You've got a life file. Your financial advisor is very much part of the process, not just in the process of having the money paid out. Not at all. It's a lot bigger than that. So yeah, that on its own is that. So we're not going to have to know who got 10 out of 10, but hopefully I've given some food for thought on that. I'd like to to just move on to the agenda for the family meeting. And I'm not going to go through too much details. I think I've said enough on it. But the powers of attorney, it's quite something that's important. For instance, my children decided that if I bump my car more than twice a month, they're going to take my keys away. The first thing I did, I went and made best friends with the local guy at the panel beaters, and he said, Gaukes, I'll sort you out in a day, don't worry. So, they made their ways around it, but anyway. Then the passwords, title deeds, tax records, legal documents, all of those things should be in your life file. It should be in here, and it should be locked away. And the people that have the keys for it should most definitely know of the whereabouts of it, and in the front here should be the telephone number of your financial advisor. Okay. Then there's a lot of stuff here, but I think the point that I'm trying to make here is that I think it's important to take this serious. Identify within your home who's the admin guru and get it done. It's a nightmare. I know it is. It's not easy going. It's not. We're all busy, but you will see. I get to work with the deceased families, and I see what they go through. It's hell. It's a shock on its own. Then there are some other things on here which I thought was quite nice just to add in here. Things to do with further education beyond schooling. There's some nice. When one of my clients saw this, he's got 4 children. He immediately called me in and said, "I want to change my will," and he's added a lot of these things in there, which is quite nice. Okay. The creating your ideal lifestyle. There's some I need to go through this with you. There are about 10 or 12 points that, again, I think you can answer these questions and be honest about them. And I would suggest you sit with your advisor and go through it with him. Now, based on family history, how many years do you think you've left? Well, we've gone through that. We know that. Mental stagnation is one of them. Alzheimer's, things like that. But I don't think that's that. It's good. It's a good point to look at. Then, how many paydays do you have until retirement? Oh, you go back and you can calculate them. If we in the audience are between 40 and 50 here tonight, there are not too many left, eh? Not too many left. Go and count them and go work backwards and see what's there. What can we do to change things? Is that expensive car really that important? Is it really that much of a tax deduction? I've been through that myself, and I work hard, I deserve it, blah, 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 blah. Okay, what lessons have you learned from the retirement of others? Now, there must be a number of lessons to be learned, because there are very few people that can actually retire with enough money to have play checks as well. So you can answer that. A typical day, let's do a bit of dreaming here. A typical day in your retirement. What is it going to look like? I know some people do woodwork, other people, do lots of other stuff. What is it going to be? Start getting excited about it. But when you get excited about it, also make sure that you can pay for those cooking classes. Draw up a bucket list of 10 places, countries you wish to visit in your retirement. Where do you want to live, for instance? Often we say, I'm going to go live in a retirement village. Have you really looked at what those villages cost? Is it in your planning? Is it part of your cash flow? I've got a paraplanner in my practice. When we start looking at these things, we build that into the planning. It's physically built into the cash flows. It says at that age, that's what happened. At that age, I'm going to buy a new car. You need to be into the detail of this. Otherwise, you're going to get surprises. This one, what charity or cause do you admire the most? No, okay, look at that if you like. What do you feel is the greatest good that can come from your own wealth? In other words, which of your values could be perpetuated among your kids' grandchildren? In other words, through funding in your own retirement or estate planning. It's legacy stuff, this, people. What legacy do you want to leave behind? More specifically, what do you want to be remembered for, having gotten done at a local level, blah, all of that stuff. And you can imagine, you'll see that most of the things we've gone through over here actually can't be done if you can't even reach 40% or 30% of your salary at retirement. It's not there. And this is all part of things that's part of the play check as well. Then what plans have you made to pass along your wisdom? Something nice to do. What treasured experience would you like to buy or physically or mentally disadvantaged citizens? This one I'd like. What number do you have in mind to leave behind in your estate for your family? And what life do you picture buying them with that number? Have you consulted the appropriate qualified specialist to secure that number through tax efficient structures? How do you want to be remembered by your family? Immediately after you are deceased, be specific. I want to fund a 7-day cruise or whatever for them. And these are real questions you should be asking yourself. And guess where it starts? It starts right here, ladies and gentlemen. It starts right here. Right. I think I've said enough. If there's anyone that have any questions, please feel free.
Gaukes, I'm the first to butt in to say that I've got quite a few people that said, hold on, you just whisked through that family thing and that was absolutely magical. And they asked, can you slow that one down? Because obviously we are a company that underwrites the value of family. Could you kindly put up that sheet and go through question by question, because it gets us thinking about the reality of where we are. So if you don't mind, and then obviously the other question of, will Gaukes be prepared to send us that list once it's done? So I said, well, I'm asking you and you must revert.
Absolutely. Every single list that I've shown you tonight would be available to all of you. If you don't feel comfortable to ask me to help you, you're more than welcome to ask whoever you want, your own people that's been looking after you. You're more than welcome. All I ask is just honor the copyright on it. That's all. Okay, shall we go back to the family meeting?
Please do. I mean, yeah. I'm for one went, no. And by the way, I'm just going to say to you guys, I proudly have a Freck file on my shelf from Gaukes, and just putting everything together is just so valuable. But we'll talk about it a bit later. First, take us through the family thing, because people are very inquisitive to know more about that.
Let's do that. Okay, agenda for the family. Okay. Okay. Oh yeah, and just before I go into this, I seriously have had a number of meetings where I chaired these meetings on a Sunday. I even had one on Boxing Day, where everyone was flying in for Christmas, and just after they were flying out again, and I said it's no problem. I drove out to the farm, and we really went through this, and because they wanted me to mediate, because it was a very sensitive issue. And you know what I found very valuable about this specific form is that it's in writing. You'll hear me. I'm always in writing. It's in writing, because in this instance they actually added this to the will. So it's got lots of value. Okay. Do mum and dad have a will? Are the executors aware of its whereabouts? Now, the people that I use for my wills. I've got an agreement with them. I've got access to their wills. I also, to the client's wills, I've got access to those wills electronically. It's filed away, it's locked away, but I've got access to it electronically. And whenever I do my annual review with my clients, that will gets printed out and it goes with me. And we actually review the will every single time we get together. Have the second one, have the powers of attorney in place been accepted by all? Big one. And also just something from the law, a legal point of view. I don't know if you know it, but in South Africa, a power of attorney actually means very little. It's there while the person is still able to. If he's not able anymore, it actually is no longer valid. So just make sure you know all about that side of it. Who's in control of the assets? Are there any outside parties involved? Big one. Liens on assets, ex-spouses. business partners. For instance, is there a buy and sell agreement in place? Now, buy and sell agreement doesn't have to be buy and sell policy, buy and sell agreement. It's normally done together with life cover and disability cover. But the main thing here is you do not want, if your dad passes away and he has this beautiful business and he's leaving it to you, but he's got a partner and his partner decides to just run you guys out of it. I've had an instance where a client of mine, actually, his partner committed suicide and his wife walked in there and she just said, well, I'm not taking over. He actually, it was a very successful engineering business, very successful for about 10, 15 years. He actually ran the business into the ground and slowly started another business on the side. That's sad. Okay. Where are all the passwords, title deeds, record, legal document, proof of ownership, blah, blah, blah. Who has access to them in the event either family member cannot speak for themselves?
Because there I want to just halt you a bit.
Yeah.
The thing about passwords, if we think about the way that we have changed, years ago you had to remember one password, and that was just to log onto your computer. Now people have got multiple passwords. In your dealings with people and on this topic, what are a few ideas that have come up in terms of how people can successfully store passwords for the future? I heard one suggestion from you is make sure that it's in your FREC file that is, sorry guys, that's what I call it, in your planning file, life planning file. I call it a FREC file because I'm going to FREC one day. What do you suggest people do? Just talk a little bit more on that.
Look, there are many ways of doing it. I know Apple, for instance, for those that are appetized like me, I've even got an Apple little sticker on the back of my car. It's very secure. There's one password to go into the app, and inside the app are all the passwords. That's one way of doing it. Just make sure that it is a legal, or it's a safe environment. The other one would be to physically write it down, which I must say, if you take how many times I would change passwords, and if I didn't change it inside the app, I would have forgotten that I've done it. So a difficult one and very challenging in today's life. But that's what I do. I use a special app that is secure, and it synchronizes within my cloud that is also secure, not in the cloud, but on another app that I do a personal backup of manually. And obviously that is also in my life file. I think one of the bigger issues here would be to get someone to be in charge of point 4. Inside, and there will be one of the family members that are more electronically wise than the others. I hope it answers the question. I don't have an answer for that other than using an app that is safe.
Someone came up with another suggestion, Norton Life Lock. Just obviously now Apple app was one. Norton Life Lock was another thing given by Bix. Thank you, Bix. Thanks for sharing that.
There we go. That's what I would look at. Okay, then number 5, has advice been received and reviewed in the last year to minimize tax impact on the estate? And are the necessary structures in place to ensure efficient transfers of assets with minimum delays or legal fees? For example, a single missing initial on a single page on all that. Now, in here, we could now open up another Pandora's box called trusts. Within my practice, I've got the services of an advocate that specializes in trusts, and I tell you, if you see the amount of trusts that are not legal, when I say legal, it gives SARS the opportunity to get in there, that are not properly structured. They don't have an independent trustee. They, for instance, did not even send, because with the trust, when you create a trust, you have to donate 100 Rand to the trust, and the trust has to accept that. If that's not done, the trust's not legal. things like that. And there's so many issues there, and you need to, and your advisor, if he doesn't have the knowledge, should have someone that has the knowledge within his practice to be able to help you to do that. The other would be, does the will talk to the trust, and the other way around, or PTY or CCs, that type of thing. I had a client the other day. They said to me, the son is living in the one house. It's in a PTY, and we're going to leave it to him in the will. She can't leave She can't leave the house in a PTY will. He's not even a director of that. You with me? There's so many small things, and after dissecting that side of it, the only thing they could do was basically sell the house and then give him the value of it. You with me? So this point here could on its own become massive. Here I'm just talking about if the signatures aren't correct. For instance, I don't know if you know that if a will is on double-sided paper, it's not seen as legal. The good news is if a will is not the original will and it's on double-sided paper and it's only you and your sister and no one contests the will, it's okay. It'll go through. The people that I use Capital Legacy. They can get it through, not because it's illegal, but if anyone tries to attack the will or contests the will, that will be seen as not valid. And if there is no other one, then there's a problem. And the previous will might be correct, structured or set up correctly. And in that will, the sister is the main beneficiary. You hear I'm going with this. So very important stuff. What instructions are in place with regard to end-of-life decisions and actions? Understanding the parents may have specific religious or personal beliefs about sustaining, not sustaining life under certain circumstances. Has a living will been created? That's something I believe that is more important than most people think. Not because to have someone connected to a machine for years or months in a row and it costs money, but maybe that person doesn't want it. Maybe that person didn't want it. That's where the living will comes in. I've had an incident where when we did the will, where we said, do you want to be cremated or do you want to be buried? The husband said cremation and the wife said no. We've just done a Bible study on certain things and cremation is not good. It's against God or whatever. Well, there was a major fight, and it took them 6 months to dissolve what they want to do with it. But if it's just left there, and the will says what it says, and the husband dies and he wants to be cremated, and the wife says no, So it's just small little things that can be ironed out beforehand. At what point do adult children involve themselves in assuming control of parents' decision making? It's a big one. And what are the mental incapacity milestones that trigger this transfer of decision making? And into whose hands does the control pass? It's got to be written down. A joint committee of the kids, maybe specifically, when do we take over mom's bank account and when does dad surrender his car keys? Now, I've told you my solution to my problem. So I don't know about you. As a matter of fact, I think this guy's older than me. I better get a younger guy to sort out my car. But anyway, I think this is big. It's massive. And I don't think this space will be enough to write down what you need to write down as regards, to this point.
Gaukes, I just want to give you the answer that is the right answer there for when will dad ever be ready for his car keys to go over? The great leader of Britain comes to mind. We will never surrender. I'm just making the point. Okay.
I like that. Okay, point number 8. If either parent remarries, another big one. Post the demise of mom, dad, what financial power vests the new spouse? And if mom, dad predeceased the new spouse, what rights do they have over occupation of the family home and enjoyment over benefits such as retirement annuity income? Now, another just on they call it the rights to live in a place. It's got a name. I can't think of it now. Anyway, I don't know if you know, but that has massive tax implications, for instance. So it's very important once one has made those decisions on who's what and what are they allowed to do, that we consult someone that knows enough about that side of it, because it could actually have a major impact. So on the outcome of the money that is paid out in the estate at the end of the day. I'm talking about the cash value. Then number 9, what structure exists to ensure harmony and unity in the family are protected during the transfer or disposal of shares ownership of the family business interests? If one adult child has the skill to run the business and the other wishes to remove themselves from being financially independent or benefit from the business, what arrangements have been documented? Okay, don't have to tell you. That's another one, big one. And it's things people don't think about. And I just one of my clients, he just said to me, he said, Gaukes, I promise you, I prayed about this because you have to forgive me. But I promise you, I made you the bad guy. I said, that guy, the photo at the bottom, he forced me. And he said to me, this thing has to be filled in, and I want this thing back by the end of the month because this is part of your plan. And that way he got the family together and for them to put this and physically write it down. Because you have to have this somewhere written down, because it's amazing. I've seen small estates where the brother and sister didn't speak to each other for 5-6 years, because she felt she wanted something he got. And it was minute, it was that much. The one was, he emptied the house too soon. She wanted the house to be there for 6 months so she could mourn inside the house. It's really stupid stuff that make people not talk to each other. What about disposal of family heirlooms and generational gifts and assets? Who gets mom's jewelry, dad's power tools, to avoid the auctioneer and lawyer getting wealthy from the forced disposal? And again, forced disposal will be when there's not enough money in the estate. Very, very, very important. And that's part of planning. Number 12, if the parents run out of money before they run out of months. Guys, this happens more than not. Who assumes financial control of their medical and long-term care expenses? Because suddenly everyone is like an ostrich, head in the hole, head in the sand. If frail care costs exceed their abilities to self-fund the years it endures, for which assets get first sold to fund the process, and are all the kids in agreement on this? Next, do all adult children know what the parents' net worth is? And is there consensus on the structure of any decided transfer to them? Specifically, do the kids really want to inherit the family beach house across the country, or would they rather have mom and dad sell it when they turn 70, take half the money, enjoy a grand overseas trip every year, and give the other half of money to their middle-aged kids in the form of a decade's worth of premium forward paid on large life insurance policies, whatever? Okay. This point here, this is the one that my client called me and they said, whoa, I want to change my will. He said that has consideration been given by the parents to establishing values, trust, to enshrine their positive living morals and values in their estate plan and final wishes. A values trust allows parents and grandparents to reward kids, grandchildren for the life they build, instead of just rewarding them with uncontrolled cash or as beneficiaries of an estate. Essentially, suitably qualified advisors work with accountants, attorneys to create a trust that encourages and rewards certain life goals over time. Now, such as, for instance, further education. If any of my children who graduate from an accredited university with the equivalent of a B average or better within 4 years, may receive a payment of 100,000 for the use of down payment of the house, something like that. Instead of just saying, well done, you've done well, here's 100,000. That's for a down payment on a house. Any child who submits 5 years consecutive tax return showing a minimum of 500,000 annual income may receive a once-off payment of 250,000. That wasn't my idea. Social contribution in society. Any of my children who elect to enter the non-profit sector to pursue their passion in helping other people may be paid X amount on top of their probable salary sacrifice. Financial discipline. Any of my children who save more than 100,000 by their first 21st birthday will receive a payment from the trust matching that amount. That's a good one. Responsible driving behavior, and you don't have to make it by their 21st birthday. It could be 25th birthday, whatever. Each child who has no impaired driving conviction, for instance, these demerit points that they're bringing in now, you will receive a fund on their previous year's car insurance type of thing. I know Discovery Insure has that built into their policy anyway. Self-reliance, for instance, any child starting their own business shall receive a payment from the trust matching any bank loan they may qualify for. In other words, you're not going to just qualify. You're going to have built up credit to be able to qualify for a loan. That's quite a nice one. Mentoring and coaching, any child entering the world of self-employment shall be entitled to an annual sponsorship of professional association membership dues, one annual industry association national convention attendance package. Obviously, I'll pick the one that's in Zurich, as well as the expenses of an accredited, experienced mentor coached for a period of 2 years following them starting their own business. Anthony, there's an opportunity for you, or entering a commission-based career. Maximum benefit X amount, 200,000. Home ownership, I like this one. Any child purchasing their own home before 25 will receive a payment matching their own deposit. Payment to a maximum of 250,000. A further amount of 250 shall be made available to any such child who has paid off 2/3 of their bond within 10 years. Good stuff, this. Family stability, trust pays engaged children, grandchildren with a contribution of 100,000 towards their wedding, honeymoon, first, successful of 10 premarital counseling sessions, and so on and so on and so on. So this is just a little bit of marketing from my side. So yeah, that's it. And any more questions?
Wow, I must tell you, Gaukes, that was very, very informative. I'm so glad that you did pause to take us through this family section, because just looking at the specific rewards that were set up, I believe that to me was a game changer, because I would never have thought to actually sit down and actually put in incentives for my children. And as you know, I've got 4 married children and 10 grandchildren, and to literally incentivize them for having achieved certain things that show that they have got business acumen. Because one thing the school system doesn't do is teach us about business, and doesn't teach us about entrepreneurship, which I think is a big faux pas. And I think you going through this last section really was a highlight to me in terms of what a beautiful opportunity to say, what will we put in as an incentive or a reward for our children and our children's children? Because the Bible says, look after your children's children. So I've got 10 of those. So there's some planning on my side from a legacy point of view. But Gaukes,
I just want to, can I just leave you with this last statement maybe? I had a question the other day when someone said to me, they're middle income earners and they can retire on 70%. And they said to me, wow, you know what, I can just imagine how much the rich people can retire on. And the statistics and the experience I have, none of my rich clients can retire with 70% of their money. So all I want to say, the message out there, do it properly, do it structured, do it bit by bit, controlled, and you will be able to retire. And you cannot retire and have all of these things we've just looked at now if you can't even have play checks. Thank you.
Well, Gaukes, I just think on behalf of all the people, I want to profusely thank you. For me, it was thought-provoking. When you started off, I thought, where are you going with this? Now I get it. That's a foundation that you actually need to put in place so that you can actually deal with all these other avenues. And I think that if I could just look at the comments, thank you, Gaukes. Brilliant, valuable, awesome points, great info. I've got your number. I'll contact you. So what I did, Gaukes, I put your email address in the notes, and I put your telephone number in the notes, because, hey, that is what it's about. When we have a guest speaker, is MyWealth would like to add value to people, and specifically this being the IBC, the Investor Business Conference, is for the investor to say, hey, have I got all my ducks in a row? And to have the liberty to contact a person like you. And the one thing that you didn't even touch is the powerful work that you've done in my life in terms of making sure that when the Lord wants to take me home, I'm ready, because my freak file is ready. I can tell you, it took me months to set up that thing with all the information that I had to put into it. But it's needed from a legality point of view because the right documents are in there. But I did find one challenge, and that is that as time has progressed, the password issue, and that's why I asked, are there new ways to look at passwords? Because I just know my business colleague is now laughing at me because he sees my little book with all my passwords in alphabetical order. He goes, China, if that thing goes missing, you are dead.
Absolutely.
So, Gaukes, from all the people, we just want to applaud you and say thank you so much. That was absolutely wonderful. And may God bless you richly. Thank you for the difference you made in my personal life. Thank you for the friend you've been over all the years, always constant, always there. And may the people from MyWealth realize that in you, they have a friend. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Nice meeting you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Well, on to our next phase, and that is that, as you guys know, every time we come to an IBC, we like to try and add value to you, value that's really going to make a difference. If anything for tonight, it is the thought-provoking ideas that came from this talk in terms of, are you set up? It's about financial planning. Now, we know that people are spending so much time in terms of how to make money that they forget how to keep money. And I do believe that because of that, our next speaker that I've asked specifically tonight is to talk to us in terms of how to literally have the right structures in place. And you heard Gaukes touch on that and the importance of that, and that a one-liner can make the difference in terms of legality, and really to talk on risk mitigation, and then also to touch up on multiple income streams and what is out there and what can be done, and when do you go for something with high risk, when do you go for something with low risk. So it's now my pleasure to introduce our next speaker to you. Unless, Skulk, if what you sound like on that side, or do I take this away and do the introduction? Just a quick, me or you? Skulk, you decide.
Sorry, I've got a bunch. Do it for me. I'll appreciate that.
Thanks, buddy. Doing it. Okay, guys. Then introducing our next speaker is a person who retired at the age of 35, but before retiring at the age of 35, had literally gone through 3 near bankruptcies and did not declare them, but chose to learn the lessons that are associated with them. This person has paid school fees to the tune of 30 million rand. Many of us have not even seen 30 million rand in our lives, let alone lose it. However, that set up the feeding base or the foundation for this person to become resolute, to find a solution that will beat the odds. And the one lesson I can tell you that you hear from this person tonight was that you can get knocked down, but you can get up again. And what's the most important part about money is to learn how to make your money work for you. What you also can realize is some people can make their million, but very few can keep the million. I, for one, am one of those. I've become a student of the speaker. I've become a supporter of him because of the ability of him having taught me how to keep my money. And not just only how to keep my money, but how to keep my money safely with peace of mind. And this person is none other than the founder director of MyWealth Method itself. The company was started in 2014, but in 2017, the speaker got this idea of what do I do to now help invent a system that will prevent people from losing money. I can tell you a lot of people have lost money in a lot of schemes. Those schemes were just attempts to get ahead financially. But these schemes were not safe. They started well, and then they all just bomb out. And then started reverse engineering a system over a 3-year period of first spending 80% on the legal side, the legalities, to get the legal players in place, to get the asset managers in place, so that today you have an offer, a regulated framework in terms of how to steer your money in the right direction. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our founder director of MyWealth, Mr. Charl Coetzee. Charl, over to you.
Good evening, Anthony. Thank you for that introduction, and welcome, guys, to this call. It's great to be here. I'm going to switch on my camera. You can see I am a real person. Just switch off the lights behind me so that it doesn't reflect it badly. I'm going to share my screen with you, and then we'll have some fun. That's something I learned from Skulk. Always do what is fun. I tend to be a bit systematic, which tends to be, as my wife calls it, boring. But nonetheless, I enjoy it. Say again, Scott.
Fun is my love language. You should know that.
Yes, we do, and that's why we love you. Great, guys. So tonight I'm going to talk about structuring, and specifically in terms of trust and companies. But before I'm going to get to the practical side, I'm going to do a bit of theory with you. I know it's very exciting to cover theory, but most people actually have no idea what trust and companies consist of. So I'll go slow, especially for you, Michelle. Don't worry. And the good news, guys, is this is recorded. We'll be sharing this recording with you within the next day or two after our good friend Fernando has done the editing. And then you guys can go and rewatch this. And again, I want to applaud Gaukes for the information he shared. I actually met Gaukes in 2011. That's 9 years ago. And he was one of the very few financial planners I would consider as a planner. So guys, he is an immense mentor. He knows what he's talking about in the financial world. And if you have opportunity to sit with him, I would highly recommend it. Okay. So let me go into the presentation. I don't want to keep you guys hanging all night. Just give me a confirmation. You can see the shared that's of the screen that's being shared. Just give me a yes in the chat. Okay, great. Thank you, Lothar. Thank you, Michelle. Okay. Let me just cover this slide. As most of you know, we are MyWealth Method. It's the coaching and training and the leadership development company we work under. That's the brand we represent. But we've got MyWealth Holdings that is incorporated in Mauritius, as well as MyWealth Capital that's incorporated in Mauritius for specific reasons. Okay, when you come to structuring, you will see why we've done what we've done. Okay, so I'm going to kick off right away with what are the different SA type of companies. We're going to cover South African companies, we're going to cover international companies, specifically Mauritian companies. The reason for this is because most of our members are South African and we recommend the Mauritian jurisdiction. But please note that these principles of the that's applicable to them is applicable to most jurisdictions in some form or manner. So if you're not from South Africa, or you're not going to do a structure in Mauritius, maybe you do it in Seychelles or Isle of Man or Jersey or Guernsey, doesn't matter. Principles will more or less apply throughout. Okay, so South African companies, we basically have different types. The first type is sole proprietors. I'm going to just give you guys a quick definition of that. Then you're going to move over to private companies. This is the most common company we have in South Africa. Then you've got personal liability companies. I'm not going to speak about that. You've got public companies. We actually have one public company within our arsenal, within MyWealth. And they've got state-owned companies. And I think all of you in South Africa will agree to me. State-owned companies, they do not make good investments. Although the government might disagree. Okay, that's an inside joke. Okay, so let's go and look at what is a sole proprietor. But first we need to actually look at what are profit versus non-profit organizations. And the Companies Act of South Africa basically distinguish between profit and non-profit companies in the following way. A non-profit organization is incorporated for public benefit, and its income and assets are not to benefit the organization's stakeholders, but rather be used to pursue the organization's charitable goals. Guys, if you want to serve your community, but you want to have the flexibility of doing it in a certain way and then change your mind a couple of months later or years later, then you will have problems within a public entity or in a non-profit entity. Because a non-profit entity, when it's set up, has a very specific goal. And whatever assets you accumulate in that entity is not yours. It belongs to the charity. Belongs to the cause. If the cause changes or you want to do something else, the law states within South Africa that that charity must then, all the assets of that charity must go to a similar charity that's still in that field. You can't just take it from helping people to helping animals, for example, because that's two different charities, that's different goals. So make sure when you want to do an NPO or a non-profit organization that you understand it. My recommendation usually would be is set up an NPO for your goals. Your definition as wide as possible, but never accrue your assets within this type of entity. Mainly use it as a channel. So you'll make your money in the organizations or the companies or structures you own and operate and manage. You'll take your profit, you'll move it through the non-profit organization to where you want to apply it. That way, the non-profit becomes a channel that is tax efficient versus owning the assets or the money-making stuff, okay? Assets, that's what it's called, and being limited if you want to change your mind in a few years' time. Profit companies, on the other hand, exist to generate profit for its stakeholders. Guys, just a quick tip here. MyWealth is all about making money, not profit. Okay, there's a big difference. Profits attract taxes, money doesn't. Okay, but in pure technical legality talk, profit companies is there to create profits for the stakeholders. Now, in South Africa, we've got this beautiful tax company called SARS. They're one of the best wealth creators if you use them correctly. But if you just play with them, they will bite you. Okay. But they say, the owners, duty or responsibility is on you to prove that you're innocent. Guys, that's a loaded sentence. It means, SARS says you are guilty until proven otherwise and can freeze your accounts until you have proven otherwise. What does that mean? That literally means if they think you're guilty, if you're not, it is irrelevant. If they say you're guilty, you are guilty. And they will freeze all your money and tell you, now go prove that you're innocent. Answer the following question to me. How do you prove your innocence if you can't afford to pay the attorney? Think about that. Because you don't have money, it's been frozen. How do you pay your attorney to prove that you're innocent? Guys, it's almost impossible. So what we've done in MyWealth is we've decided we're going to play by the rules and make their formula work for us. I don't know if many of you guys have read books like Corpatarte or wealth creation books. And most of them says that the laws has been written by the wealthy. Not the wealthy you and I see on the street with big cars and big houses. I mean like by the truly wealthy, which you will never think are the true wealth owners. But the laws have been written for them, okay? So that they can actually grow without paying taxes while the middle class or the perceived wealthy pay most of the taxes. Now, what we need to do is we need to start playing the game that SARS or the tax authorities are playing. We need to start learning the rules. I always tell people, what is your chances of winning soccer if you do not understand the rules of soccer? If you're going to play soccer the way you play rugby, you will not win. You will lose. I don't care how good you are at rugby. You're playing the wrong game. And that's what most of us has been doing within the tax realm. We've been playing rugby while tax is actually soccer or cricket or whatever you want it to be. So we have spent the past couple of years learning the new game, the game that SARS or tax authorities play worldwide. Now, profit organizations, there are different types of them. So I'm just going to read it. Tax and other considerations affects the choice of a particular form of business entity. The most commonly adopted form of doing business by foreign investors and private companies and branches is let me just go there. That's companies that operate on the basis of limited liability. Okay, so sorry, let me just track back. So sorry, I skipped the slide. Most entities choose to operate as a profit organization because of the flexibility it provides. Now, with that flexibility in mind, one of the advantages of a company versus a sole proprietor is the following. Companies operate on the basis of a limited liability. As a general rule, members are not liable for the debits of the company. However, there are exceptions to the rule. What does this mean? This literally says, if you're a company and the company goes insolvent because of market conditions or whatever, the shareholders are not liable for the debt or the losses, provided they have not, what's the word? Basically, you've operated within the rules. You haven't misbehaved yourself. Okay? This is a massive benefit. So if there's a claim against a company that owns no assets but did conduct the business, which was the channel of the business, the claim will stop at the company and the assets can be protected within another company because liability is limited to a company structure, to a specific company structure. Sole proprietors are basically businesses you run in your own name. Most people start out like this. If you become a support member within MyWealth, or you might be a team builder in other organizations, you're actually operating as a sole proprietor. 99% of the people I meet operate as sole proprietors. This is the simplest business entity, and the sole proprietor trades under its own or her name with no separation of assets and liabilities. Guys, this is a key thing to remember. So if you're going to do business in your own name, whether it is Pity's Bakkie Fabriek, I don't care what your name is, but you actually, there's no corporate structure. You're doing business in your own capacity. If there's a claim against the company, which is then you, your assets, like your house, is not protected. They can claim that because there's no separation between asset and liabilities. Many times you will hear me say, we want to have the benefit, but we don't need the ownership. And the reason I'm saying that is because of this. If you have the ownership, you have the liability. But if you don't have the ownership, but you can merely access the asset, you have the benefit. Okay? And it applies to different things. Benefits from all the profits and assets accumulated through this business, okay, are accrued to you. You are personally liable for any debts that the business incurs, and it enjoys no limited liability. Okay, so when you start out, it's a good structure to start with, but as you start growing, you should move on and incorporate. The next one is the companies. So unlike sole proprietors, foreign business entities are distinct juristic persons, meaning they operate as their own people. I'm putting people in brackets. Okay, with a separation being made between the assets and the liabilities of the owners, shareholders, and those of the company. Okay, this is what we want. The most common type is public companies. Now, public companies are companies that have shares that can be sold to anyone in the public. You need to qualify for this, and then you'll probably list on one of the stock exchanges. MyWealth actually have one public company within our basket of opportunities, and that is the 12J company, Delta VC1. Delta VC1 is our S12J, which gives us tax incentives for investing within it. It's a special type of public company. Not all public companies have this advantage, but this is where Delta VC1 falls into. These business entities issue shares and are often listed on a stock exchange. They can be public without being listed on a stock exchange. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Public companies are liable to stakeholders, and management is invested in a board of directors. This is key, guys. Public companies are liable to the shareholders. With other words, Within public companies, the company is run to the benefit of the shareholder, and the shareholder have, they have no liability in what happens within the company, but the directors and the management of the board of directors are liable towards the shareholders for making sure they do as required. The next type is the private company. The MyWealth Dice, MyWealth Vanguard, and MyWealth Centurion falls into this category. This business entity may be founded and managed by just one director. It must have at least one shareholder, but no more than 50 per share class. Okay. Guys, I don't know if you've noticed, although MyWealth Dice is a private company, we have multiple shareholders. But we have segregated those shareholders in groups of 50. This is how we keep being a private company. Okay. What are the advantages of a private company? The lifespan is forever. Companies don't die. So when Gaukes spoke about people dying, assets going into estates, that's literally a wipe out of wealth. Now, one way to start mitigating that, it's not the full solution yet, it's part of the solution, is to set up a company that owns and operates, and that owns the assets and operates as a business. Shareholders have a limited liability. In other words, you are protected. The act only imposes personal liability on the directors who are knowingly part of the carrying on of business in a reckless or fraudulent manner. In other words, only if you committed fraud or ran a business recklessly can you be held liable as a director. It can be easily and effectively managed. It's adaptable to both small and large businesses. Not required, this is key. It's not required to file annual returns or annual financial statements with the register of companies. Thus, they are not available to the public. So your financial matters remain private. Okay, you do need to submit it to SARS, even though it was a 0 for the year. Okay, but you don't have to submit it to the register of companies. Okay, I'm going to shift gears and go into is a trust. Just bear with me. I know this is a bit technical. I'll get to the practical side now, and then I'll show you how to use these tools to, let's just call it, structure your life tax efficiently. So there are 3 types of trust in South Africa. There are the aligned trust. We don't make use of them. Then we've got the testamentary trust, which are okay, but I don't recommend that, because if you've done proper planning, you would actually have an individual's trust or a living trust that safeguards your wealth. Okay, so what is a trust? A trust is merely an agreement between the founder, the trustees, and the beneficiaries. Okay, it's a document that is filed with the Master of the High Court. As Gaukes said, many trusts have not kept up with the law because they have not implemented independent trusteeship. They have not done their minutes. I would say about 80% of the trust I get my hands on are, in the terms of the contract, they are fine. But in terms of the year-to-year management is where they're lacking, and that is why SARS will penetrate them and attach all the assets in the trust as if it was part of the estate. So when we go to the route of corporate structuring, we must make sure we also accept the responsibility that comes from it. There are benefits and responsibilities we need to adhere to. Okay. So a South African trust, by definition, is a fiduciary relationship of a trust based on honesty, defined by a contract known as a trust deed, containing the wishes of the founder, that's the person setting it up, as a set of fixed instructions to the managers or trustees relating to the title, management, and inherent benefits pertaining to specific assets, also referred to as the trust property, for the benefit of the beneficiaries. Okay, that's a lot of words, but what it does, it basically say, It says, you as the founder, the guy who wished to start a trust, will put in a set of rules, the trust deed, to govern the management of those assets, and the trustees become the managers guided by the contract for the benefit of the beneficiaries, which is then the people who will benefit from it. So the key elements of a trust, which makes it a brilliant estate planning tool, not necessarily a brilliant tax planning tool, estate planning tool, is the separation of the legal entity, where a company must belong to a shareholder. A trust belongs to nobody. Guys, that's key. A trust doesn't belong to anybody. It belongs to itself. It's like a husband and a wife. A husband belongs to the wife. The wife belongs to nobody. Okay? A trust is that way. So, a trust has no shareholders, and it can take care of its beneficiaries. That is key. Who are the beneficiaries? We are. So what a trust enables us to do is to have the benefit without having the ownership. So the parties of a trust is basically the founder. This is the guy who sets up the document, the contract. The settler, these are the people who put money in. So the founder and the settler can be different people. Most of the time they are the same, but you can have it as separate people. The trustees are the managers. The independent trustee is the manager who can't benefit from any decisions made within the trust. It's usually a professional person like an accountant or attorney, but it can be anybody who's not a friend or a family member of the beneficiaries. Okay, and then the beneficiaries are the people who can benefit from a trust. So these are the parties. Okay, so I'm going to switch now away from South African trust. Guys, this is a quick overview, and then I'm just going to cover the two types of Mauritian companies. Then we're going to go into the Mauritian trusts, which will also be a quick overview, and then we're going to get to the practical side. So there are three types of companies in Mauritius. They are the domestic companies. There's category 1 global business license companies, GLB1s. These are the companies we'll be making use of. And then our category 2 global business companies in Mauritius. Okay, so a GLB1, what is it? The purpose of this company must be to conduct business outside Mauritius. Okay, this is key, guys. We are not conducting business in Mauritius, we're conducting business outside Mauritius. However, a GLB1 can also conduct business in Mauritius to some extent. The acceptable proportion for local business is deemed acceptable in the range of 10 to 15%. So if you perhaps do some business, it will not disqualify you, but obviously the bulk of it must be done outside. A GLB1 is a tax resident in Mauritius and can avail of the treaty benefits. That is important. We want our entities to be taxed in Mauritius at a more favorable rates. To benefit from tax treaties, a GLB1 must maintain central management and control in Mauritius. In other words, we appoint local, let's call it fiduciary service companies, to act as the directors and the managers of the companies, but they are not the beneficiaries of the companies. In South Africa, I don't know about other places in the world, we've been trained to think that ownership equals control. It is not so. I can be the beneficiary of something, but I don't need to own it to control it. Okay? A very good example of that again is what do you call it? Marriages. Okay? The wife doesn't need to own the husband, but she definitely makes certain things happen if she decides that's what needs to happen. She's the beneficiary of many of the things. Okay? I will be careful. Thank you. Luckily, my wife is not in the school, so I am going to be safe tonight when I return home. Okay, but guys, the bottom line here is that we do not need to control or own anything, to have the benefit, and to dictate how it should benefit us. Okay, let me go to the next one. Mauritius. Yes, yeah, I need to go on with the speech, otherwise my wife might be having some interesting surprises for me. Okay, so Mauritian trust, we basically have 4 types. We have the discretionary trust, we have the fixed interest trust, the charitable trust, and the purpose trust. We are not going to talk about the others, we're only going to focus on the discretionary trust. They're the same type of trust that is within South Africa called the living trust or the individual trust. Again, we have the same benefits. Legal separation, no shareholders, and can take care of its beneficiaries. So the parties to the trust is slightly different from South African trusts. We still have the founder, we still have the settlers, we still have the trustees, but we don't have any independent, because in international trust, the beneficiaries can't be the trustees. So we appoint again the fiduciary companies to be the trustees, but we can appoint a protector, which can be anyone you know, a company or a person, to watch over the trustees to make sure that you execute the wishes of the beneficiaries. Okay. So practically, what is the journey of corporate structuring? If you're going to start today with MyWealth, how would we recommend, because we're not allowed to advise, what would we recommend you do and how do you structure? Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to separate you from the tax problems, or your estate problems rather. Okay, so structuring is more about estate planning than it's about tax planning, although there are tax benefits. Okay, but I'll get to that later. The first thing you want to do is you want to set up a structure with a trust, a holdings company, an operational company locally. Not necessarily all at once. You can start with one and grow into the rest of them, but you want to separate you from your assets, you from your investments. Then, as you grow in wealth, we start then a trust in Mauritius. Only a trust. And when I say Mauritius, guys, it can be anywhere in the world. It can be, like I said, Isle of Man, it can be New Zealand, it can be Guernsey. Okay, I'm speaking Mauritius because 90% of my clients use Mauritius as the preferred jurisdiction, as they are South African. Okay, but it can be any international appropriate jurisdiction. Once you have set up that trust, we then grow your wealth in there. Once you have reached a certain limit, then we go and we form the GLB1 holdings and GLB1 operational. Okay, so it's a process. This whole process can cost you anything from $1,000 for South African all the way up to $100,000 overseas. Okay, it can become very expensive, so we don't do it from the word get go. We journey into this, we grow into this, as and when it becomes justifiable in terms of income, risk mitigation, and income benefits. Okay, for those guys who are team builders or team leaders within MyWealth, you guys will, once you reach a certain level of income with us, we are going to strongly recommend you set up an international structure so we can actually have a zero effect on the income you earn from multiple streams of income. Okay, that's doable, but there's a few tricks to that. We reserve that for our clients. Okay, but in essence, what happens then is that your South African or local entity becomes your cost center. That's where you run most of your expenses, and then you do investments in the offshore entity where you have the tax efficiencies in place. And if you need money from your local entity into your international entity or vice versa, you simply do it via loans. Okay, these loans must incur interest. For South Africa, it will be about 12% in rand terms. Okay, but we will help you with this. We'll help our members with this, and we can then structure according to your needs. Okay, this is an example of a structure. Doesn't say you have to have this specific structure. Okay, so that's me on corporate structuring. I'm going to stop sharing screen now. Okay, let me just close that. Are there any questions? If you have a question, just type it into the chat box, and then I can answer it for you. See, David, you've raised your hand. I've unmuted you. Just unmute yourself. Okay, I see he's not responding. Okay, guys, so okay,
yes,
there it goes.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
I was just want to ask how much per grant. So you did answer that question.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. Success formula. I like that name.
Hi, Charl, it's Chris here. How you doing?
Oh, good, thank you. Just make it Chris, then I know who's speaking.
No. My question is, in terms of MyWealth, what amount under management do you feel would be adequate enough to set up your structure like that, your trusts and your companies, and start doing transactions like that?
Okay, good question. So I would usually start looking at a local structure once you have about $20,000 to $40,000 under management. Okay, because now it's becoming big enough to actually become an estate problem. Okay, it's not a tax problem; it's an estate problem. Okay. Once you have between $50,000 and $100,000 under management, I would start looking at an investment trust offshore for risk mitigation. And if you do earn additional incomes, we can then start looking at structuring that tax effectively or efficiently. Okay. When you get to about $200,000 to $500,000 under management, then I will start saying, let's now start looking at a full corporate structure that includes an offshore trust and offshore holdings and an offshore operational. Okay, but you can grow into that. It's not necessary to have it when you start. Okay, so I hope that helped.
So your recommendation is, when you're looking at about $20,000 under management, you start your local structure.
Right.
And from there, you can decide to grow into the corporate structure.
Yes.
Okay, got you.
The local structure, guys, are mainly for estate planning. Okay, it's not for taxation purposes. It's not for what do you call it? Yeah, it's not for tax. It's for risk mitigation. It's for risk mitigation and legacy planning. It's to make sure your wealth, which is local, transfers to the next generation without being wiped out. International structuring starts looking at tax efficiencies, but it's more about global risk management. So structuring has more to do with risk mitigation and estate planning than it has to do with tax efficiencies. Although once you have reached a certain level of income, tax efficiencies comes into play as well. Okay.
Okay, got you. And what about our international members, those that are abroad? What's your recommendation on them setting up structures?
That is like asking me how long is a piece of string. Okay. Because it's different for each jurisdiction. If you're American, yeah, life is tough. Okay, their laws are like, yeah, it doesn't matter what you do, you are still liable to America, even if you structure. They are not very favorable in terms of that. but most of the world follows more or less the same rules as the South African or the Commonwealth areas. So for them, it is definitely beneficial as well to do international structuring. And again, it depends on their local taxation and their local assets. But I am not in a position to recommend anything in terms of local structures for them. But definitely we can look at international opportunities in the preferred jurisdictions.
Thank you, Charl. Much appreciated. So, in real terms, our current market is aiming at the South African market, if I'm correct by saying so.
In terms of structuring, that's the one I am most familiar with. But our product, in terms of the private equity, is tax efficient for the whole world. Okay. So, guys, just as a side note, we have spent a lot of time developing investment vehicles that it's tax efficient, doesn't matter where you are in the world. So the investment vehicles work for everybody in terms of the local taxation laws and risk mitigation. Okay, because the investment in itself has been structured tax effectively. And that's why I tell you guys that the trust is not a tax vehicle, it's a risk vehicle. Because the tax effectiveness has already been accounted for within the investment vehicles. Okay. Okay, so if you do own or earn multiple streams of income and you want to have that tax efficient, okay? Now I'm not talking about investments, I'm talking about income. So I'm not talking, so within MyWealth, our investments are all tax efficient. If you're with another investment company who doesn't give effective tax efficient returns, I might be biased, but I would recommend you reconsider your asset allocation, okay, in terms of the companies you work with. But income can be sold to income generating business can be sold to an offshore structure. In our case, it might be a Mauritian company or trust. If that income is then invested into the live wrapper platforms, it will then neutralize any taxes on that, provided you then pull out the money of the set amount of time as a loan. Okay. You guys who have been with me for a while would know that that is actually music in your ears. If you don't know what we mean by a loan, I recommend you come and see one of the coaches and become part of the family. But there's a solution for every problem. Some of them are just more creative than others, but there's always a solution. Okay. Anthony, I think that's everything from me. If you want to ask me some more questions, please do so.
Yes, Charl. One of the people said, having listened to, obviously, having to plan by Gaukes for the future, the issue that came up always is, how can one make sufficient money? And the question was, help and guide us on multiple streams of income. So I think that you're best positioned because you just spoke about structures, but also within those structures, multiple streams of income has got definite benefits, and maybe just the strategic approach to that.
Okay, so guys, within MyWealth method, we've actually structured in terms of investment income. I just want to quickly count here. We've structured over 17 different sources of income, different assets, different vehicles. So we help our members across a wide spectrum of 17 different investment vehicles from which they can earn income. Then over and above that, we have another 4 business income generating opportunities that gives you income in different manners. And that income can vary from crypto income to bullion income. Yes, you can earn gold and silver as income, and also fiat income, which is typically dollars. So we have spent a lot of time to make sure that all the bases are covered within the MyWealth structures, from tax efficiencies to diversifying into multiple streams of income and diversification into multiple assets, all within one easily manageable structure. Okay. So, but that in itself is another 5-hour talk, which I'm not going to do now. But just know they are available, and we have had that in mind when we built the system. And as we continue into next year, we will start rolling out bank accounts for our members. Yes, you heard me correctly. Bank accounts, which are IBAN international accounts, which you can link multiple currency cards to those accounts. So we really have the long-term vision in mind, but we're going to roll out in phases. And as we grow, we will add just more and more and more bells to this Christmas tree. And I promise you, there's a lot of surprises, and they are good.
One question there from David in connection with KYC. Can you leave it in your own name, or can you leave it in the trust or personal name? How does that work? I think let's just clarify that.
Can I just read the question because it's not clear?
Okay.
You actually do your, okay, so the question was, if you're going to set up a trust, in which entity do you do your KYC? Within MyWealth, we always look at, well, in terms of legal anti-money laundering act legislation, the entity in which you invest is actually irrelevant. They will always look at the end beneficiary. So even though there might be 10 companies with trusts and a whole bunch of other stuff in between, they lift the corporate veil and see who's the end beneficiary of all of this. So within MyWealth, we understand that. So we, by default, KYC you, because you will be the end beneficiary of all your structures in any case. Okay, it's not a problem. Once you have been KYC'd, then you load the company or the trust onto your profile, which will then be KYC'd in its own right. Because the company or the entity or the trust must be verified that it's legal and it is compliant with the authorities that governs its existence. Once that is done, you can then either sell your assets into that entity or loan your assets into that entity. There's different ways of moving them. And from that point forward, the growth will then be captured within the entity you've set up. But guys, we will guide you with this, and it is not as complicated, but it is crucial that it's done technically correct. But there are solutions. And as I tell many of my investors who I work with, this is a 3 to 5 year journey. There's a lot of moving parts, so don't worry about it. Just know the ship is moving forward. As long as you're on board, you're in good hands. Anthony?
So thank you. Then I am going to release you, and thank you so much that you have added such great value in terms of helping us understand these corporate structures. A lot of people are aware of the products in hand, but we're not aware in terms of how would they set up themselves to get to the next level. So I would like to actually just thank you on behalf of everybody, and I am just going to make 1 or 2 announcements, and then we will be out of here. Right, so everybody, I think you would agree with me that the wisdom of Charl adding out in terms of understanding that there's a difference between a trust, a private company, a PTY, a sole proprietor, and that you need to decide beforehand how you'd like to position yourself, and that from a legality point of view, there's purpose in the way that you structure yourself. And we also learned from Gaukes that you would like to make sure that you plan your life accordingly, and that is that if you want to have a pleasant retirement, not only to have pay things to pay, but also time to play, you have to plan accordingly. And therefore, it's the way that you construct yourself and structure yourself. Now, one thing I do know is that a lot of food for thought is shared in terms of what you and I should be doing when it comes to our personal planning for the rest of our lives. And I can just tell you one thing, 60 is never too old to start planning. Colonel Sanders started Kentucky Fried Chicken at the age of 60 and became a very, very successful businessman and lived way beyond 80 to enjoy that. So all I can say to you is life is a gift and it literally is a song. So you want to put everything into it to make sure that you have secured your best future for your families, and that when you and I depart to go to a better place, that they are looked after by ensuring that we have planned accordingly. There's this life and there's the afterlife. Thank goodness we don't need money up there. Then in terms of what Charl did with the structures, for you and I to understand that when we set up our businesses is to ask all the relevant questions, because it's all about the legal positioning of what you and I want to do. So with that being said, please take note of the meetings that we will have going forward, and that is on this coming Monday night. There will be the Leadership Lab, and that will be at 7 o'clock at night. On Tuesday, we will have the normal investor journey, where we would actually expose people to our brand new project, which is Dyer's Focus, which is bringing and will bring financial relief to thousands of homes in South Africa. So that'll be Tuesday night on 7 o'clock. In terms of our monthly meeting, and that is that we will convene again in the first, we normally convene on the first Thursday of every month for the Investor Business Conference, with the exception of the first week in January because so many people are on leave. So we will commence again, and our next Investor Business Conference will be on the first week in February. So it'll be the first Thursday in February. So please put that in your diaries. In terms of the people who are on here tonight, mostly are investors. I just want to say to you that we are busy sorting out our presentations so that we have an investor video, and that we also have one for people who would like to establish themselves as a support builder, a person that wants to run this as a business and help other people get to a better future. So there will be 2 different videos. We're just finalizing the PowerPoint. For all of those that I will not be speaking to you again until the new year, on behalf of Charl, Skulk, myself, we just want to say to you, may this festive season truly be a season for the reason, and that you will understand that it's not just about Christmas presents, but it's actually about the gift of life, and that you and I will realize that we need to embrace these opportunities to look after our families and to plan to leave legacies to the 3rd and the 4th generation. Thank you for your participation tonight. Thank you for being here tonight. And like always, all I can say to you is a short reminder. Tonight is the final cutoff for pre-launch funding towards the MyWealth Dyer's Focus program, which is the 3rd of December, because we are now actively running out into launching the various phases. The phases of implementation will be on Monday the 7th will be a phase, the 14th will be a phase, the 21st will be a phase, the 28th will be a phase, and in most probability going live to the public on the 4th of January. Guys, it's been a massive journey. The system is huge, and we've been laboring beyond the point to make sure that everything is set up correctly. So from all of us, have a fantastic evening. And remember, the reason for the season, the true one. God bless you all. This is the executive team on behalf of myself, Skulk and Charl, and our families, signing off, saying God bless and good night.